The world thinks it knows Turkey, a place of bright blue seas and the skyline of one famous city. This is a country where two continents meet across a narrow stretch of water, where mountains are said to hide the resting place of an ancient ark, where cities are built layer upon layer, each one hiding the remains of worlds long gone. This is not just beaches and skylines. This is a Turkey few people truly see, ancient and modern at the same time, mysterious and unforgettable. This places here holds so many stories, they feel beyond time itself. And this is where our journey begins. This is Unseen Turkey. On the windswept plains near the Dardanelles Strait, where the Aegean Sea meets the edge of Asia, a low mound of earth holds one of the most famous stories ever told, Troy. For centuries, many believed this city existed only in verse, a legend spun by the poet Homer, a tale of a stolen queen, a 10-year siege, and a wooden horse that changed the course of a war. Then, in the 19th century, archaeologists began digging into this unassuming hill, and layer after layer, they uncovered something extraordinary. Not one city, but 9, stacked directly on top of each other, across roughly 4,000 years of continuous habitation. Each layer tells its own chapter. Troy the trading outpost, Troy the fortified citadel, Troy destroyed by fire, rebuilt, destroyed again. Somewhere within those layers, archaeologists believe, lies the Troy that inspired the legend itself, a late Bronze Age city that may have fallen to war sometime around 1180 before the Common Era. Walking among the excavated walls today, you can trace stonework nearly 10 feet thick, about 3 meters in places. Defensive ramparts built to withstand exactly the kind of prolonged siege described in ancient epic poetry. A reconstructed wooden horse now stands near the entrance to the site, towering some 40 feet tall, roughly 12 meters, a modern tribute to the most famous trick in military history, equal parts monument and photo opportunity for the thousands of travelers who arrive each year still chasing Homer's ghosts. The story of Troy has never really left popular imagination. It has simply changed shape with each generation that retells it, from ancient epic poetry to Renaissance painting to modern cinema. In fact, this very legend is returning to the big screen once again, with a major 2026 film adaptation bringing Homer's Odyssey to a new generation of audiences, Matt Damon stepping into the sandals of Odysseus himself, the wandering king whose journey home from this very war became one of the oldest surviving stories in Western literature. Standing on the windswept plain where that war may have actually been fought, watching the sea in the distance, the same sea Odysseus is said to have crossed on his long, cursed voyage home, it becomes remarkably easy to understand why this story has survived for nearly 3,000 years. Long before dawn breaks over central Anatolia, a very different kind of magic begins in the region known as Cappadocia. In the dark, dozens of massive nylon envelopes are unrolled across open fields, giant fans roaring to life, propane burners igniting with a sound like distant thunder, slowly coaxing each balloon upright against the fading stars. By the time the first hint of orange touches the horizon, more than 100 hot air balloons can rise together into the sky above Cappadocia, drifting silently over a landscape unlike anywhere else on Earth. Each balloon can carry a basket holding anywhere from 4 to 20 passengers, rising to heights that sometimes reach 1,000 feet or more, around 300 meters, floating just above the tips of stone spires that jut up from the valley floor like a forest turned to rock. From up here, the scale of the landscape becomes almost impossible to process from the ground. Valleys stretch in every direction, carved and sculpted, dotted with cone-shaped rock formations locals have nicknamed fairy chimneys. Their soft volcanic stone eroded over millions of years into shapes that look almost deliberately whimsical. The morning light shifts constantly as the sun climbs, painting the pale rock in tones of gold, then rose, then a soft, dusty lavender, while the balloons themselves, dozens of them, hundreds of feet apart yet somehow perfectly choreographed, drift together like a slow-motion migration of enormous, silent birds. There is a particular kind of silence at altitude in a hot air balloon, broken only by the occasional roar of a burner reigniting, that travelers consistently describe as unlike anything else they have experienced. No engine noise, no rushing wind, just the gentle creak of the basket and the vast, open landscape unrolling silently below. As the balloons begin their descent, chase crews on the ground track their landing sites, ready to catch each basket and pop the traditional bottle of sparkling wine that has become part of the ritual, a toast to a sunrise most passengers describe as one of the most beautiful mornings of their entire lives. Not far from where the wreckage of Troy still rests, and scattered across other ancient sites throughout western Turkey, the ruins of temples dedicated to Athena, goddess of wisdom and strategic warfare, still catch the Aegean light. At Troy itself, a sanctuary once stood dedicated to Athena, the same goddess who, according to legend, both aided and complicated the Greek campaign against the city, her favor shifting with the tides of an ancient divine rivalry. At Troy itself, at the ancient city of Assos, perched dramatically on a hill overlooking the sea, a Doric temple to Athena still stands, its remaining columns framed against a horizon where the coast of Greece is visible on a clear day, close enough that the two civilizations that once clashed over Troy can, quite literally, still see each other across the water. At Troy itself, these temples were never simply places of worship. They were statements, built by cities determined to align themselves with wisdom, with strategy, with a goddess whose favor was believed to tip the balance of both battles and empires. The columns that remain, weathered by roughly 25 centuries of sea wind and salt air, still hold their proportions with a precision that continues to astonish modern architects and engineers. Each column subtly tapered, each spacing calculated according to mathematical principles the Greeks refined into an art form. Standing among these fallen and standing stones, with the Aegean stretching out below and the wind carrying the same salt scent it likely carried when priests once climbed these steps to make offerings, it becomes easy to understand why the ancients believed certain places demanded a goddess of wisdom watching over them. Some views, apparently, are worth building a temple for. From temples built by Antiquity, our journey now turns toward a city that has spent nearly 17 centuries reinventing itself. Istanbul, once Byzantium, once Constantinople, now a sprawling metropolis of over 15 million people, straddling two continents and refusing, even now, to be defined by any single era. The domes and minarets of the old city, Hagia Sophia among them, still dominate postcards and travel posters. But turn away from the historic peninsula, cross toward districts like Levent and Maslak, and an entirely different Istanbul rises into view. Glass and steel towers now punctuate the skyline, some reaching heights of over 1,100 feet, roughly 340 meters. Corporate headquarters and luxury residential towers standing in striking contrast to the 600-year-old mosque domes visible in the same panoramic photograph. This is a city that has always understood how to layer itself. Ottoman palaces sit within walking distance of gleaming shopping malls. Centuries-old bazaars operate a short metro ride from ultra-modern business districts where the currency traded is no longer silk and spice, but finance and technology. At night, the contrast becomes even more striking. The flood-lit domes of the old city glow warm and golden along the historic peninsula, while across the water, the illuminated towers of the modern business districts blink in cool blues and whites. Two very different visions of the same city, separated by water but connected by an unbroken thread of ambition that has defined this place since its founding. Istanbul has been conquered, rebuilt, renamed, and reinvented more times than almost any city on Earth, and yet somehow it has never lost its fundamental character. A city built to trade, to connect, to stand exactly at the point where continents and centuries are forced to meet. Beneath the modern skyline, an even older layer of engineering persists. The Basilica Cistern, built in the 6th century to store water for the ancient city, still holds its original forest of over 300 marble columns, many salvaged from even older, now vanished structures, their bases sunk into water that has remained impossibly still and clear for well over 15 centuries. Above ground, the Grand Bazaar continues operating much as it has since the 15th century, one of the oldest and largest covered markets in the world. Its network of vaulted stone corridors stretching across more than 60 streets and housing several thousand individual shops, a scale that still manages to overwhelm first-time visitors despite centuries of practice, welcoming exactly that reaction. Ferries continue crisscrossing the Bosphorus constantly throughout the day, carrying commuters between the European and Asian sides in journeys that take only 20 or 30 minutes, a daily commute that quietly doubles as one of the most scenic short boat trips available anywhere in the world, passing beneath the very bridges we will explore next, and alongside Ottoman-era waterfront mansions known as yalis, their wooden facades reflecting directly in the strait's dark water. It is this constant layering, ancient cisterns beneath modern streets, centuries-old bazaars beside glass towers, wooden Ottoman mansions along the same waterway as high-speed suspension bridges that makes Istanbul feel less like a single city and more like an ongoing conversation between every era it has ever lived through. Returning inland, back toward the valleys where our journey began at dawn, Cappadocia reveals itself fully once the balloons have landed and boots are back on solid ground. This entire region was shaped by volcanic eruptions dating back millions of years, ash and lava settling into soft layers of volcanic rock known as tuff, a stone so workable that both nature and human hands have spent centuries carving it into extraordinary shapes. Wind and rain did the first work, eroding the softer rock layers away while leaving harder caps of basalt perched on top, slowly sculpting the towering cone formations that give the region its otherworldly appearance. Some fairy chimneys rising over 60 feet tall, nearly 20 meters, their harder stone caps balanced precariously atop slender pillars of pale rock. Humans arrived and continued the sculpting. Entire homes, churches, and storage rooms have been carved directly into these formations and into the soft cliff faces throughout valleys like Gurem and Zelva, some dwellings dating back well over 1,000 years, still in remarkably good condition thanks to the dry climate and stable volcanic rock. What Gurem Open Air Museum preserves dozens of rock-cut churches decorated with Byzantine frescoes, their painted colors remarkably still vivid after nearly 1,000 years shielded from direct sunlight and weather inside these stone chambers. Beneath the surface, an entirely different world exists. Underground cities like Derinkuyu descend as deep as 280 feet, roughly 85 meters. Multiple levels of tunnels, ventilation shafts, stables, and communal rooms carved entirely by hand, once capable of sheltering thousands of people for extended periods during times of invasion and unrest. Above ground, valleys with names like Love Valley, Pigeon Valley, and Rose Valley each offer their own distinct color palette and rock formations, some pillars standing in clusters that look almost like a stone forest frozen mid-growth, others isolated and solitary, rising from otherwise flat valley floors like ancient sentinels. At sunset, when the low light rakes across the valleys, the layered rock reveals bands of color rarely visible at midday, soft pinks, ochres, and warm grays stacked like sediment made visible, a landscape that seems to shift its personality entirely depending on the hour you choose to visit. Back in Istanbul, one geographic fact defines this city more than any other. It sits directly on the boundary between Europe and Asia, split by a narrow strait known as the Bosphorus. Stretching roughly 17 miles, about 27 kilometers, the Bosphorus connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Marmara, and by extension to the Mediterranean beyond. A waterway so strategically vital that empires have fought wars simply to control passage through it. To physically connect the European and Asian sides of the city, engineers have built a series of remarkable suspension bridges, feats of modern engineering spanning a strait that has separated continents for as long as humans have had a word for continents at all. The 15th July Martyrs Bridge, formerly known simply as the Bosphorus Bridge, stretches nearly a mile across the water, about 1.5 kilometers, its towers rising over 500 feet, roughly 165 meters above the strait, suspended by cables engineered to sway safely even during the region's occasional earthquakes. A short distance north, the Fatih Sultan Mehmet Bridge adds a second crossing, and further still, the Yavuz Sultan Selim Bridge, one of the widest suspension bridges in the world, carries both highway traffic and a high-speed rail line across the strait in a single sweeping span. Crossing any of these bridges, whether by car, by train, or on foot along designated pathways, offers a genuinely strange sensation. You begin your journey in Europe. Within minutes, sometimes less, you arrive in Asia without ever leaving the same city, without ever losing sight of the same skyline. At night, these bridges are lit in shifting colors, their cables strung with lights that reflect off the dark water below. Ferries and cargo ships still moving beneath them in a steady, glowing procession, much as trading vessels have moved through this exact strait for thousands of years, simply now beneath electric light rather than oil lanterns. Few places on Earth allow you to stand with 1 foot in Europe and 1 foot in Asia within the span of a single afternoon. Istanbul has built its entire identity around exactly that improbable geography. Southward along the coast, where the Taurus Mountains plunge dramatically toward the Mediterranean Sea, the city of Antalya and its surrounding coastline offer a very different kind of Turkish landscape. Here, turquoise water meets pale limestone cliffs, waterfalls tumble directly into the sea, and ancient ruins sit scattered along beaches so clear that boats appear to float on nothing at all. The old town of Antalya, known as Kalayiçi, preserves narrow cobblestone streets lined with Ottoman-era wooden houses, their upper floors jutting out over the alleys below in a style echoed throughout much of historic Turkey, cascading bougainvillea spilling purple and pink blossoms over centuries-old stone walls. Just outside the city, the Duden waterfalls plunge directly from coastal cliffs into the Mediterranean, dropping roughly 40 feet, about 12 meters, in a dramatic curtain of white water visible from boats cruising just offshore, mist rising into rainbow-streaked spray whenever the afternoon sun hits it directly. Along this stretch of coastline, ancient ruins appear with striking regularity. The Roman theater at Aspendos, remarkably well preserved, could once seat around 15,000 spectators, its acoustics so precise that performances are still held there today, actors and musicians relying on the same stone curves the Romans engineered nearly 2,000 years ago. Further along, the sunken ruins near Kekova rest just beneath the surface of impossibly clear water, ancient Lycian structures visible through the waves for visitors who peer over the edge of a glass-bottomed boat, an entire drowned settlement quietly persisting beneath water so transparent it barely seems to qualify as an obstacle at all. Beaches like Patara and Çırağlı stretch for miles of soft golden sand, backed by pine-covered hills, some sections protected specifically because loggerhead sea turtles still return here each summer to nest, digging into the same sand their ancestors have used for longer than most human civilizations have existed. This is the Turkey most travel posters chase after. But standing on these cliffs, watching the water shift through a dozen shades of blue and green as clouds pass overhead, it becomes clear why the label paradise, however overused elsewhere, feels entirely earned along this particular stretch of coast. Inland from the coastline itself, the Taurus Mountains rise steeply, their upper slopes forested with pine and cedar, offering a striking contrast to the beaches only a short drive below, snow still capping the highest peaks well into late spring, even as swimmers wade into warm Mediterranean water along the shore. The ancient city of Termessos, built high into these mountains at an elevation of roughly 3,000 feet, about 900 meters, was never conquered by Alexander the Great. its defenders relying on the near-impossible terrain itself as a natural fortress, steep cliffs and narrow passes making direct assault essentially impossible for even the most determined ancient armies. Along the coast, the Lycian Way, a long-distance hiking trail stretching roughly 300 miles, close to 500 kilometers, winds past ancient rock-cut tombs, hidden coves, and pine forests, tracing a route used in various forms since antiquity, now popular with modern hikers chasing views that alternate constantly between sea cliffs and mountain ridgeline. Whether explored by boat, by hiking trail, or simply from a quiet beach chair watching the color of the water shift with the afternoon light, the Antalya coastline offers a version of Turkey defined less by ancient stone and more by the simple, enduring pleasure of a genuinely spectacular natural landscape. Far to the southeast, near Turkey's border with Syria, a very different city rises along a steep hillside overlooking the vast Mesopotamian plain below, Mardin. Built almost entirely from a warm, golden limestone, the city seems to glow at nearly every hour of the day, its buildings stacked in tight, terraced rows that climb the slope in a way that allows almost every rooftop to catch unobstructed views across the plain stretching toward the horizon. Mardin's history stretches back well over 4,000 years. Its position along ancient trade routes between Mesopotamia and Anatolia, making it a crossroads for a remarkable diversity of cultures, languages, and faiths, a diversity still visible today in the city's mosques, churches, and monasteries, standing within easy walking distance of one another. The Cuisine Madrasa, an Islamic theological school completed in the 15th century, showcases the intricate stone carving Mardin's craftsmen became famous for throughout the region. Geometric patterns and delicate floral motifs cut directly into the same honey-colored limestone that defines the entire city. Nearby, the ancient Darul Zafaran Monastery, a Syriac Orthodox Christian site founded well over 1,000 years ago, still functions as an active religious center. Its underground chambers, according to local tradition, once used for sun worship long before Christianity arrived in the region. Walking through Mardin's old quarter, the architecture itself tells the story of adaptation. Thick stone walls keep interiors cool during brutal summer heat, while covered passageways known as abaras tunnel beneath buildings, connecting streets and offering shaded relief from direct sun, a network of stone corridors as practical as they are beautiful. At sunset, when the low light hits the limestone directly, the entire city seems to shift into a deeper shade of gold, the vast Mesopotamian plain below fading into a soft haze, and somewhere in the far distance, on truly clear days, the outline of Syria itself becomes visible, a reminder of just how close this ancient crossroads sits to yet another cradle of civilization. Across Turkey, whether in the old quarters of Istanbul, the hillside lanes of Mardin, or the historic centers of smaller Anatolian towns, one architectural signature repeats itself again and again: narrow streets. Many of these alleys measure barely 6 to 8 feet across, roughly 2 to 2.5 meters, just wide enough for a loaded donkey cart, or in earlier centuries, wide enough to allow neighboring buildings to lean toward each other overhead, providing welcome shade against the harsh midday sun. This was rarely accidental. Before the age of automobiles, streets were shaped by pedestrian traffic and pack animals rather than vehicles, and narrow, winding lanes offered practical advantages in hot climates, funneling breezes between buildings while limiting direct sun exposure for much of the day. In cities like Istanbul's Balat and Fener districts, these narrow streets climbed steep hillsides in staircases and switchbacks, brightly painted houses in shades of pink, blue, and yellow standing shoulder to shoulder, laundry lines strung between upper-floor windows, cats, an unofficial symbol of Istanbul itself, sunning lazily on stone doorsteps. Small shops occupy nearly every available storefront along these alleys. Spice merchants, copper workers, textile sellers, their goods often spilling out onto the street itself, creating narrow corridors within already narrow corridors, a maze built entirely from commerce and daily life layered directly on top of centuries-old stonework. From walk these streets is to move at an entirely different pace than modern city life typically allows, forced by geometry itself to slow down, to notice details, a carved wooden door, a hand-painted ceramic tile, an elderly resident calling greetings to a neighbor across a gap barely wide enough to reach across. These streets were never designed with tourism in mind. They were designed for life, for trade, for community. And it is precisely that authenticity, streets shaped by centuries of ordinary use rather than modern planning, that gives them their particular, irreplaceable charm. Step into nearly any home or cafe across Turkey, and eventually you will encounter a ritual that has remained essentially unchanged for well over 5 centuries: Turkish coffee. Prepared in a small, long-handled copper or brass pot called a sezve, finely ground coffee, water, and often a touch of sugar are combined and heated slowly over low heat, never allowed to reach a full rolling boil, the surface instead developing a thick, foamy crema that experienced brewers watch with careful, practiced attention. The grounds themselves are ground to an almost powder-like consistency, far finer than what most espresso machines produce, allowing the coffee to remain unfiltered, settling naturally at the bottom of the small cup it is eventually poured into. Serving Turkish coffee is itself considered a small act of hospitality and respect, traditionally accompanied by a glass of water to cleanse the palate beforehand, and often a small piece of Turkish delight or a sweet on the side. A complete sensory ritual rather than simply a beverage. There is even a well-known tradition of fortune-telling using the leftover coffee grounds. Once the cup is finished, it is turned upside down onto its saucer and left to cool. The patterns left behind by the settling grounds later read by a friend or family member claiming to interpret shapes and symbols within the dark residue. A playful custom that has persisted for generations regardless of how seriously any individual takes the predictions themselves. In 2013, Turkish coffee culture and tradition was formally recognized by UNESCO as part of humanity's intangible cultural heritage, an acknowledgement of just how deeply this particular ritual, small cup, slow preparation, unhurried conversation, remains woven into daily Turkish social life. To sit across from someone over a cup of Turkish coffee is rarely just about caffeine. It is an invitation to slow down, to talk, to linger, a tradition built entirely around the idea that some conversations deserve time measured in sips rather than minutes. Turkish cuisine draws from an extraordinary range of influences: Ottoman palace kitchens, Central Asian nomadic traditions, Mediterranean coastal cooking, and Middle Eastern spice roots, all blending into a culinary identity that feels distinctly its own. Nowhere is that identity more vibrant or more accessible than on the street itself. Simit, a circular bread coated in sesame seeds and often compared to a cross between a bagel and a pretzel, is sold from carts on nearly every street corner across the country, stacked in tall towers on wheeled glass cases, a breakfast staple that has fed Turkish city dwellers for generations. Doner kebab, thin slices of seasoned meat roasted slowly on a vertical rotating spit, is carved to order and tucked into bread or wrapped tightly into a durum wrap, a dish so beloved it has been exported and reinvented in cities across the entire world, though rarely, longtime vendors insist, quite matching the flavor achieved on its home streets. Balik ekmek, literally fish bread, remains particularly beloved in Istanbul. Freshly grilled fish, often mackerel, tucked into fresh bread with onions and a squeeze of lemon, traditionally sold from small boats rocking gently along the docks of the Golden Horn. Sizzling grills mounted directly on deck. Midye dolma, mussels stuffed with spiced rice, are sold from carts piled high with shells. Vendors calling out prices as customers pluck individual mussels, squeezing lemon directly over the rice filling before eating them straight from the shell while walking. Kokoreç, seasoned and grilled lamb intestines, remains a beloved, if adventurous, late-night street food, particularly popular after a night out. Chopped finely and served in a crusty roll alongside tomatoes and peppers, a dish that divides visitors sharply between immediate devotion and cautious hesitation. Roasted chestnuts, sold from small charcoal braziers during colder months, fill entire city blocks with their distinctive smoky, sweet aroma. Vendors wrapping the warm nuts in simple paper cones, a small, affordable comfort passed hand to hand on chilly winter evenings. No exploration of Turkish cuisine could possibly conclude without addressing its most famous dessert, one whose reputation has traveled far beyond the country's own borders: baklava. Layer upon layer of paper-thin phyllo dough, sometimes numbering as many as 40 individual sheets stacked within a single pan, brushed generously between each layer with melted butter, filled with finely chopped pistachios or walnuts, then baked until golden and finally soaked in a fragrant sugar or honey syrup. The city of Gaziantep in southeastern Turkey holds a particularly fierce reputation for producing what many consider the finest baklava in the entire country, its pistachio groves supplying the vivid green nuts that give the region's baklava its distinctive color and rich, buttery flavor. Master baklava chefs, known as ustas, often train for years before being trusted to roll phyllo dough thin enough to read a newspaper through it, a skill passed down through apprenticeship in family-run bakeries that have sometimes operated continuously for well over a century. A single tray of properly made baklava might require hours of careful preparation, each sheet of dough rolled, layered, and buttered by hand before being cut into precise diamond shapes and baked until the top layers achieve a delicate, shattering crispness that gives way to soft, syrup-soaked layers beneath. Beyond baklava, Turkish dessert culture offers remarkable range. Künefe, a warm, cheese-filled pastry made from shredded phyllo, is soaked in syrup and often served bubbling hot, the cheese inside stretching in long, satisfying strands with each bite. Turkish delight, known locally as lokum, offers a completely different texture entirely, a soft, chewy confection flavored with rosewater, pomegranate, or citrus, dusted generously in powdered sugar. Sharing dessert in Turkey is rarely a solitary act. Trays of baklava are typically ordered for the entire table, small portions passed around alongside tea or coffee, dessert functioning as much as a social ritual as it does a final course, a sweet punctuation mark at the end of nearly every significant meal or gathering. Far to the east, near Turkey's border with Armenia and Iran, a single massive peak rises abruptly from the surrounding plain, visible for miles in every direction long before you arrive anywhere near its base. Mount Ararat. Standing at roughly 16,900 feet, about 5,130 meters, Mount Ararat is Turkey's tallest peak, a dormant volcano crowned with permanent snow and glacial ice even during the height of summer, its symmetrical, cone-shaped silhouette visible from remarkable distances across the flat surrounding landscape. According to the Book of Genesis, this is the mountain, or at least the mountain range, where Noah's Ark is said to have come to rest after the biblical flood receded. A story that has drawn explorers, researchers, and pilgrims to this remote region for centuries, each hoping to find physical evidence of the ancient vessel somewhere within its glaciers and volcanic slopes. While no scientifically verified remains of an ark have ever been conclusively found, the legend persists powerfully, reinforced by the mountain's genuinely striking, almost impossibly symmetrical shape, rising so dramatically from otherwise flat terrain that it does, admittedly, look exactly like the kind of landmark a biblical flood narrative would choose as its resting point. The mountain actually consists of two peaks, Greater Ararat and Lesser Ararat, connected by a saddle-shaped ridge, the smaller peak reaching approximately 12,700 feet, roughly 3,900 meters, itself an impressive summit that would dominate the skyline anywhere else, yet remains permanently overshadowed by its taller neighbor. Climbing Greater Ararat requires proper permits, experienced guides, and several days of ascent through changing terrain, from grassy lower slopes populated by grazing livestock, through rocky volcanic scree, and finally onto permanent glacial ice near the summit, a journey that rewards experienced mountaineers with views stretching across 3 different countries on a clear day. For nearby communities, many of them Kurdish villages scattered across the mountain's lower slopes, Ararat is simply a constant, defining presence. A mountain that shapes weather patterns, provides glacial meltwater for irrigation, and serves as a literal and figurative landmark orienting daily life across an entire region. For their nearby communities, many of them Kurdish villages scattered across the mountain's lower slopes, is a Sinkni view for communities. For nearby communities, many of them Nordic villages scattered across the mountain's lower slopes, is a Sinkni in a creative my mind while walking into hate. Paralleled by hundreds of villages, archaeologies, and divified landscapes, a peak that has inspired storytellers for thousands of years and shows no sign of losing that particular gravitational pull anytime soon. Descending from Ararat's snowy slopes and scattered across much of rural Anatolia, another, quieter scene repeats itself across the landscape almost everywhere you travel outside the major cities. Grazing flocks. Sheep and goats remain central to rural Turkish life, herded across highland pastures during summer months and moved to lower, more sheltered valleys as winter approaches. a seasonal migration pattern known as yaylaçılık that has continued largely unchanged for many centuries. A typical flock might number anywhere from 50 to several hundred animals, tended by a shepherd, often accompanied by large, powerful livestock guardian dogs bred specifically for the role. Breeds like the Kangal, a Turkish breed weighing up to 145 pounds, roughly 65 kilograms, historically used to protect flocks from wolves and other predators across open, exposed terrain. Across the rolling hills of central Anatolia, and particularly against the dramatic backdrop of volcanic peaks like Ararat and the fairy chimney valleys of Cappadocia, these flocks create a scene that feels almost timeless. Dust rising softly around hundreds of moving hooves, the distant clatter of bells worn around the necks of lead animals, carrying clearly across otherwise silent open country. Wool and dairy from these flocks continue to support rural economies throughout the country, feeding into traditions of cheese making, yogurt production, and textile weaving that stretch back thousands of years. Techniques passed down through families rather than formal instruction, refined generation after generation through simple, patient repetition. At dusk, when shepherds begin guiding their flocks back toward shelter for the night, the low light catching dust kicked up by hundreds of moving animals, the entire scene takes on an almost cinematic quality, silhouettes moving slowly across golden hillsides beneath skies just beginning to shift toward evening color. It is a scene that has likely repeated itself with only minor variation since long before any of the ruins, temples, or fortresses covered earlier in this journey were ever built. A reminder that beneath every layer of empire and architecture, Turkey remains, in many of its quieter corners, a land still shaped fundamentally by shepherds, seasons, and the patient rhythm of animals moving across ancient grass. From the buried walls of Troy to the drifting balloons above Cappadocia's fairy chimneys, from the glass towers of modern Istanbul to the honey-colored stone of Mardin, Turkey reveals itself as a country built entirely from contrast. Ancient and modern, sacred and everyday, mountain and coastline, existing side by side within the same set of borders. This is a land where two continents literally touch, where legends of gods and ancient wars still shape tourism campaigns and blockbuster films alike, where a single cup of coffee can still slow down an entire afternoon, and where flocks of sheep continue moving across hillsides in patterns unchanged since long before the first stones of Troy were ever laid. It is a country that refuses easy summary, a place where you can watch the sunrise from a hot air balloon over volcanic valleys, and by evening, stand on a bridge suspended between two continents, watching container ships glide beneath your feet through waters that have carried trade and conquest alike for thousands of years. If every land carries its own particular rhythm, Turkey's rhythm is one of constant, comfortable contradiction. Old beside new, sacred beside everyday. East meeting west not as a metaphor, but as a literal, physical fact written directly into its geography. If you feel that Turkey is somehow both entirely familiar and completely unexpected, like a place you have always known through legend but never truly seen, leave a comment below and let us know which part of this journey surprised you most. And if journeys like this one speak to you, like this video, share it with someone who needs a reason to wander, and subscribe to Eden Vista so you can keep exploring the unseen corners of our world, one unforgettable destination at a time.